Hey guys, this is Justin. Hello and welcome to another video. Today, before the newest Mandalorian episode comes out, I want to discuss what the season's done so far when it comes to Din Djarin's Mandalorian covert. Before we do, however, I just want to take a second to really thank you guys for the massive support we got on yesterday's Star Wars Jedi Survivor video. I was a little bit nervous about that one because I don't really upload a ton of gaming content, and it was sort of a big investment. I mean, I traveled to get the stuff for the video, so to make it the top of the Jedi Survivor previews on YouTube feels like a really big honor. Also, we hit 950,000 subscribers yesterday, which is massive. We're so close to the big 7 digits. I want to thank everyone who's joined me on the journey so far and ask, what are you waiting for everyone who hasn't? But today we'll be talking, as I mentioned, about The Mandalorian. And I briefly touched on the fact in my review that I thought The Mandalorian was taking a somewhat weird approach with how it's dealt with the idea of Din Djarin's Mandalorian cult. And I really think because of some of the responses I got that this is a topic worth a full video, and I'm doing it now because I can really see this playing into episode 6 and obviously the rest of the season. So I started my analysis with what I thought was axiomatic, but a lot of people pushed back against it, so obviously not. The idea that the Mandalorian's cult or the Mandalorian's covert was a bad thing, and I understand why some people argue that this point isn't fully proven, but I do believe that the first 2 seasons of the show were really showing us that the Mandalorian puts himself in a better place by moving away from the dogma associated with the cult, including most prominently whether he can or cannot remove the helmet. This is an issue that I flagged in the Book of Boba Fett as well. Every time the Mandalorian's removed his helmet, it's been presented to the audience as an unequivocally good thing. Most prominently, he removes his helmet to help save his son, Grogu, and then later removes it so the two can have a heart-to-heart moment before they part ways. Again, the way the show presents these things is that the Mandalorian is doing the right thing as a father, and that's the way pretty much everyone in the audience feels. Still, he's punished for this. He's kicked out of the clan, and the only way he can return is through something thought to be impossible. I think it's pretty clear that the Mandalorian cult is having a negative impact on his life, even though he's tied to it intrinsically because of how they rescued him as a child. It's really not super complicated. He's doing what he feels like he should do, but his life is being ripped apart by the system. And this is something we see throughout media and obviously in the real world as well. The idea that the thing you're comfortable with or the thing thrust upon you may not be the best for your emotional development or your happiness. And this is something touched on as early as The Widow, where the Mandalorian is very clearly fighting against his conditioning when considering whether he wants to stay and start a new life in peace and probably prosperity. But yeah, anytime a show sets up a conflict like this and shows the audience that when the main character follows his heart, that he's furthering the conflict, well, you expect something major to happen. The Mandalorian Season 3 has seemingly done the opposite. Instead of moving away from the Mandalorian covert, Din Djarin has seemingly not only re-embraced the cult, but also now brought Bo-Katan into the fold as well. And this is obviously very curious because Bo-Katan is one of the few individuals who could be Mandalore someday. At first, the show was ambiguous. Is Bo-Katan looking to join the Mandalorian cult? Is she truly sort of falling in love with the sense of community? Or is she simply using the Mandalorians as a stepping stone for more power? And I would have been okay with either of those, especially if presented right. If the Mandalorian showed us that even these powerful, influential people can fall under the spell of these extremist groups. Or she's just using them to gain power, which I think is another interesting bit of thematic choice. But all of that's why I really didn't like this most recent episode of The Mandalorian, or I specifically didn't like the end there. We get essentially a hand-wavy situation for the show not to have to reconcile the Mandalorian's past trauma with the natural sense of belongingness that a cult offers. Instead, he's now going to have the option of basically accepting the cop-out. The covert is simply going to change its ways, and I don't really feel like that was earned. It does help recontextualize some past episodes. I think we now know why they spent so much time on the rescuing of Ragnar. There's sort of a connection between influential members of the clan. And I do like the idea of the Mandalorians coming together generally, but it's like whiplash how the armorer went from being completely unreasonable and stuck in her ways to now being a total pragmatist. And I guess that's because of the mythosaur, but even if we accept the in-universe reason, I don't like it thematically. I was really hoping that this season would show the Mandalorian continue to break from from his indoctrination, maybe himself try to take some from within the clan with him, or ultimately have to face off against them in order to live, you know, his most happy life with his son, but it's not what we're getting. At least it doesn't appear. That being said, I did sort of get some vibes at the end that the Armorer could have something else going on. I was a little creeped out during that scene she had with Katan, but she always kind of creeps me out, to be a little bit fair. But that's really all I've got on this topic for today. I know I've rambled a little bit. So to end the video off, I'm going to take a few hashtag AskGek questions. As always, guys, if you have a question you'd like me to answer at the end of one of my shorter videos like this, you can leave it in the comments. Make sure you include the hashtag AskGek. That is how I find them in YouTube Studio. The first question comes from Ignancy Gemra, who says, why do clone troopers only have 4-digit numbers, CTXXX, since there were millions of them? And yeah, that's actually something that's always bothered me as well. There's a similar issue with droids where how could R2-D2 exist in a universe that has trillions upon trillions of astromech droids? And the usual explanation is, well, the R2-D2 or the CT5555 is only a part of a longer string of digits. Like R2-D2's probably got some long ass serial number, which he refers to as his government name and gets angry if anyone uses it. And I guess we just have to assume that it's coincidence that we haven't seen any clones who have the first 4 numbers overlap. One place where I thought we might be able to look is the clone memorial wall from the Bad Batch. However, for some reason that wall is just completely nonsense. Not even in the CT, the numbers format, just completely nonsense. All right, another very brief question. This one comes from Aaron Venture. He asks whether I think Sabine used Ezra's lightsaber during the Galactic Civil War. And yeah, I think she definitely did. Given Sabine's practicing with the Darksaber, I think she would have practiced with Ezra's as well. She might even be hesitant to give it back to him when they meet in the Ahsoka show. I don't know. I think there's always been a hint of Force sensitivity in Sabine. Either way, she's a very quick study. So yeah, I think she probably was using it, and it would have been a nice addition to her Mandalorian armory, even if she wasn't nearly as effective as a Jedi or ordinary Force user. But guys, that's all I have for today. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know your thoughts and more down below. And of course, as I mentioned, if you haven't subscribed yet, please consider doing so as the hunt for 1 million continues.